I spent the last 3.5, almost 4 years at the perfect job. I was continuously learning and growing my skill sets. I had a voice at the company. I got to see the beauty that is the open source space. I got to organize and host parties with massive companies like Microsoft and GitHub. I was well compensated with good benefits, and yet somehow there came a point where this was no longer enough for me. So let's dive into why I left my dream job to refocus all of my energy on myself and my long-term vision for my tech career. Let me first dive into what the environment was like working at Charm. I felt incredibly supported throughout my time at Charm. My manager was always very good at hearing me and listening and adapting quickly to my needs, which I felt was really important. I had incredible colleagues that I worked with for many, many years. Majority of the team I worked with for about 2.5 years or more. There were some newer hires near the end of my time at Charm that I didn't really get to connect with as closely. However, I am still in touch with the majority of my colleagues that I spent my time with at Charm, and I'm still cheering them on and really rooting for them. And I get so excited to see all of the cool things that they're building. They just all genuinely have such a passion for programming, for the art that is writing code and creating software. And I always get just so excited to see their wins and everything that they're building. So as I said, it was a very nurturing environment. I felt like I was able to grow a lot at my role there, partially because of the culture. I was able to reach out to any of my colleagues at any moment, and they would be open, willing to help. And we always had a very flexible kind of routine there. Like we were all in different time zones, and yet we still just made it work. I would often do pairings with Muesli. Muesli is absolutely lovely, major icon in the open source space. And I got to learn so much from him. I got to be constantly inspired by Moss's creativity and his incredible projects that he's built. Things like VHS, where you get to record demos of your terminal applications in a tape file and then put it into VHS, and create any kind of output like an MP4, MOV, GIF, anything. He also created Freeze for me for my content stuff. He also created Gum. He's so iconic with all of the projects that he would build, and was just so creative and always building more things, and always served as a point of inspiration for me. Ayman was always somebody who I feel like would find anything that could be improved or optimized, and would just be so curious to find out how that thing worked and really dive deep into these different concepts and somehow become the master of all things. He was just so good at doing these deep dives into different projects or optimizations that could happen in the Charm stack, and just doing all of the research required for that and then executing on it so effortlessly and gracefully. Carlos is just an absolute beast, like force to be reckoned with. He is just somebody who is absolutely an all-rounder. He would just crush bugs so freaking fast. The definition of 10x dev. He would always be very open and willing to help, and was always very supportive of the whole team. He was somebody that I worked with quite closely on some of his different projects, where I would help him do a lot of validation and stuff like that, and trying to break his stuff. And he was always so easy to work with and willing to help, and always looking to improve. And he always had such an extensive reading list of all the books that he was reading. And I always found that so inspiring. And I would basically just be taking note of like everything that he's using, everything that he's reading. Like, I'm just like, okay, how do I immerse myself and become a Carlos developer? And then of course, Christian, who is the founder of Charm, has insane design capabilities. Like, it's absolutely crazy. All of the Charm branding and everything is like his vision, his execution for the most part. We did get a new hire in 2025 that took over a lot of the workload with like the animations and stuff like that. But like really the whole brand and aesthetic of Charm has been Christian's baby. Like, Christian is very good. He taught me what it means to have an eye for detail, and what it means to kind of write good software and make things user-friendly. And I just learned so much from that whole team, and I will continue to be inspired by them, I'm sure, for the rest of my career, and I owe a lot to them. So I'm very, very grateful for having worked with any and all of them. They really allowed me to further extend a lot of my existing skills and have new skills. So let me dive into a little bit of like what my role looked like at Charm. So my actual technical job title was the head of developer relations. This meant I actually did a lot of development and kind of like product management in a sense. I think I had a fairly unconventional breakdown for like what is developer relations. And I think that in part that's because it's an open source company. So a big part of like community comes from that open source aspect. And so to me, it was always really important that the community felt heard and seen. And I wanted to always make sure that they felt that their contributions were valued. And so a big part of my job was trying to unblock them, be responsive in issues and pull requests, even if the actual like meat of the company is focused on something else that would potentially be a monetizable product. I was focusing on a lot of our existing open source stack and maintaining those, being responsive to the community, reviewing PRs, fixing bugs, basically doing a little bit of like prioritization in terms of like what bug reports we have, what feature requests are being highly spoken about, all of that kind of stuff, and aggregating that, bringing it to the development team during our team meetings. And then we would kind of go back and forth, decide on what's the next priority, set a milestone for the project, and go with that. I also felt that it was a big part of my role as a community leader in a sense, which is also kind of how I see just content in general, is that you're a bit of like a community leader. You set the standard for topics on like what is the community talking about, what are they able to connect over, all of that stuff. So I felt that it was also a really important part of the community health was content creation. And so I decided that YouTube was the platform I wanted to focus in on for Charm, because I know that it gives pretty good discoverability. And it also was a great way for me to kind of give a bit of like white glove service and really like handhold new users for like bubble tea, lip gloss, whatever. And like video is just such a great way to be able to visualize problems and explain things. So I decided to go for that. And it did turn out to be a really, really successful and enjoyable process. So a lot of my time at Charm was basically split between this kind of more like development focused role of maintaining the open source projects and even engaging with the community on Discord and stuff like that, answering people's questions and all of that kind of stuff. And then also the other side was, okay, what are the trends that I'm seeing a lot of in the community, and how can I address this more deeply through a video format? So doing a lot of different content, sometimes just for more like outreach marketing. How do I get more people's eyes on this project? And then also, how can I support our existing users, and trying to kind of like find the middle ground between the two, depending on kind of like the state of the community at the time. So that was a lot of what I was doing. So that meant that I got a lot of great development experience. I got a lot of great QA experience as well, because obviously it's not good for our users if we release things that have bugs. So ideally I would try and like really scrutinize and test all of these things. And I also tried to keep in mind like my different team members, what their kind of like favorite parts of the development process were, and try and work with them on those things. So for example, if they really hated to do documentation, or they like didn't do tests for that feature yet, it's like, okay, I'll just write out the tests for you and I'll like add it to this PR. I will write the docs for you for this new feature, all of that kind of stuff where I know that it'll help kind of like the end user result. I can kind of take maybe that weight off of my coworkers. I really ended up focusing in on a lot of that kind of stuff. I did a lot of design. So a lot of the like thumbnail designs and stuff like that, any graphics that were being used in the videos were all things that I'd created up until I think about like, I want to say mid 2025. It was all me. So I did all of the video ideas, scripting, editing, writing a lot of different blog posts. And a lot of that came again from like the community engagement, how the community was feeling, what the community was talking about the most. And if there were different projects that I wanted to highlight that I thought were really interesting that the community wasn't necessarily aware of, and or if there were like questions about usage, whatever. With all of that, I think it gave me a really massive set of skills that set me up perfectly for a lot of opportunity in the future. But I think that in 2025, things started to change a little bit for me. So 2024 was an excellent year for me. 2024 was, I feel like I got to produce a fair amount of videos. I feel like I got to really engage with the community, and I felt like I grew a lot as a developer, and I was able to be very, very hands-on, very like involved to a point that I had never been before. Like I'd always helped kind of maintain the different tools, but I felt like it was a smaller team, and I really got to kind of like step up and be more involved in like full-fledged like projects, like sub-projects for our repos. That was really fulfilling for me and really nice. And I feel like I got to be a lot more kind of involved on that front. That was really, really satisfying for me. I felt like in 2025, I started to be blocked on a lot more things, and I felt like the company priorities didn't necessarily align with what I wanted and what I needed in my career at that point, because I'm somebody where I will always think, here are my goals. If in a year from now I'm not there, I need to stop and I need to look back and think, what am I doing that's holding me back from achieving these things? And I like to try and do that generally on like a quarterly interval. So like every few months, check in, okay, how am I progressing towards this kind of like longer term goal, and what's that all looking like? And I was just feeling like throughout 2025, I was kind of fighting burnout in a sense, because I felt like I couldn't get anything over the finish line. And it was incredibly frustrating and demoralizing. So I ended up focusing a lot more on kind of my own like videos and stuff like that, and just posting more frequently on YouTube. And that was a bit of like an outlet for me to just feel like I could get things across the finish line. That became very time consuming. And yet it's funny because I'm like, okay, I was doing all of that stuff. I just felt like I just didn't have the energy or like the focus maybe to actually invest that into more of my programming stuff, which even in hindsight, I was mostly trying to focus on getting content out the door so that I could then like give my full focus to development stuff. I think it's really hard to have like split attention when you're doing programming related tasks. So I think it was kind of one of those things where I just wanted to like prove to myself that, hey, I'm like capable. I can do this. I can make good videos that people want to watch. I think I kind of needed that last year. However, that also meant I just was not doing really much of any development stuff at Charm. I would try to work on some of our open source stuff, but everything was just blocked. Everything was kind of like bottlenecked on all fronts, and it just became very demotivating. And again, the easiest path forward was for me to just like reinvest that time and energy into myself in a very tangible way. I didn't necessarily feel like building my own project at the moment was the right move. I think just in terms of like what I needed at the time, it was, I needed that kind of like creative outlet where I had full control, full creative control. I will say, I think that this is like a word of warning for any kind of managers. And this is not at all to throw shade on Charm in any way, because I think this happens at like a lot of different work environments, and it can just happen as like a byproduct of, different priorities. And like, I will say, I think it's very, very important to make sure that your employees are able to deliver things. I think that it's easy to feel very, very demoralized and demotivated when you aren't able to get things over the finish line, when you aren't able to like get things that see the light of day. I know that that can be incredibly frustrating, and it can just feel like you've wasted so much of your time and energy. The combination of like that kind of frustration for me. And for that whole year, I think about 6 months in, I was just like, okay, I am not feeling like I've grown at all on the software front in at least 6 months. And that's a problem to me. That's a big problem to me. So I knew that it was time to rethink how I was spending my energy, because there was that like misalignment of what I wanted versus what the company needed from me. Despite knowing all of that, I was considering potentially just changing companies. I was a little nervous to like go out on my own and do my own thing. I just know that it's pretty high risk. And then part of me was also like, okay, if there was a time to do it, now would be the time, because you have a certain amount of like stability, you have good savings. I have pretty good spending habits. I'm not very frivolous with my money. I generally like meal prep all of my food. I wear my things into the ground. So I will like literally this sweater that I'm wearing, I think it's like 10 years old. Like I like to buy higher quality things that last for a long time. And I am very intentional with like what I consume. I generally only really splurge to celebrate milestones and to see my friends. I'll spend money to go fly out and meet my friends because that's really important to me. And I think like you have to consider like, what are you working for? And I think it's important to not lose sight of that, because also if you have a family at home and like you are working for the happiness of your family, you have to make sure that you are being present and that you are feeding that, watering that grass while you're in that moment. And so to me, friendships are really important, and I want to water the grass of my friendships by making the effort to be present with them and to go and see them when I can. And if I have the financial means to do that, then I will. I was able to make the jump because I had a really good cushion of savings. I was already getting a lot of different business opportunities through like my content stuff. I was also offered contract work that I actually haven't yet started because I keep postponing it. But I think that was the big push, was like I already also had friends that were doing the same thing and they had made it sustainable. They are good friends of mine. So I knew that I had their support. I have a contract lined up. I have enough savings, and I am having to say no to a lot of things that would be really good for my career because I'm putting the priorities of a company that I work for first. Kind of all of that stuff coming together finally made me consider maybe this is a time where I just finally, for once in my life, focus on one thing. I've always had multiple things to focus on. Like when I was in school, I was also working. When I was working at Charm, I was also creating my own content, which is how they found me in the first place. So I just felt like there are always so many things that I want to keep up with, because I never want to look back and say like I didn't try my hardest and have regrets around that, or I didn't give it my best shot. And to me, giving it my best shot means that I am exploring any and all of the opportunities that are being handed to me that I think are worthwhile and would have good long-term rewards for me. So what does this mean for you as a viewer, and what is next for me? I want to play around more with different formats, different storytelling on this YouTube channel. I'm playing around with posting more shorts. I'm doing my live streams, and I'm going to be doing long form content, all of those on a fairly regular basis. The live streams are the trickiest because, if I'm not at my setup, I can't really do it. Like, it's a bit trickier, but I will still be live streaming more, and I will have a fairly consistent schedule with the live streams. My plan is to post long form videos weekly, and then shorts will be posted multiple times a week. My whole goal for my content is that it makes you feel inspired and excited to code and to play around with computers and just explore everything and anything related to tech. Like, my goal is to inspire and motivate. And if you ever feel like my content is no longer serving that purpose or is somehow deviated from that, like, please do feel free to let me know. I know I get a lot of comments that are kind of like, more so people just trying to backseat how I'm producing content or what I'm doing in my content, which is like fine. Like, I like constructive feedback. I really, really value that. And I think that so many of you have so many great insights and ideas and everything. And I love hearing that from you. I'm going to be collaborating with more creators, software developers, and companies, which means you're going to be seeing some of your favorite creators potentially being featured on my channel. And I'll be featured on maybe some of your favorite creators' channels. I would really love to be able to use this platform to help promote or platform like different open source projects that I think are fabulous. I really, really do love the open source community. And I know right now it's going through a bit of a rocky patch with all of the low effort pull requests and things like that, low effort contributions. I know that maintainers are kind of at an all-time low in terms of the maintenance support is insane right now. There's a huge gap between the effort it takes to maintain the project and the effort it takes to contribute to a project. I just think that there are so many great projects out there and so many talented developers that don't get the users that they, frankly, I think deserve, just because they're not as familiar with like the whole marketing side of getting users, but they are building outstanding software. And I would love to be able to provide some level of visibility for them. So if you are one of those developers, feel free to reach out. Like, my business email is on my account. Feel free to reach out and I'll check out your project and all of that stuff. I just think it would be really cool to be able to do that for the open source space. And I will be partnering with more companies. I will continue to be very particular with the companies. To me, it needs to make sense for 3 entities, okay? No, first and foremost, it needs to make sense for the community. I learned this quite heavily from and practiced this in my DevRel role. Is I'm like, okay, community comes first. How do we keep the community needs the top priority? and fit the business requirements around that. Let me always keep this really, really relevant for the viewers and adding value for the viewers and not just benefiting the company or there being any kind of imbalance there. It needs to benefit the community, it needs to benefit the creator, and it needs to benefit the company. So I want it to be like the perfect little triangle of value. And so I will continue to be very particular about who I'm partnering with and what I'm promoting on the channel, but you will be seeing more stuff like that. And I will make an effort to not make it like all of my content is around these like brand collaborations or anything like that. Yeah. And you guys, you can always give me feedback. Like, again, I really genuinely enjoy hearing from you. Like, I think I'm just like the vehicle for the community. And I think that when I'm working with these different brands and companies, like I'm just the spokesperson for the community, you know? So it's very, very important to me that you guys feel heard and seen. So yeah, you can always let me know. Let me know in the Discord is probably the easiest place. You can join the Discord and let me know over there. On the development front, which I'm freaking excited to get back into and not be so rusty with, because I have been live streaming all of January and I've been trying to code while live streaming and I forgot how freaking hard that is. And also being rusty, and the only time that I've been able to like devote to coding this month has really just been through the coding live streams. That's changing. Don't worry, we're getting there. But this year I'm going to be deep diving into solo development. So I'm going to be sharing some of my journey with building my own projects and like different learnings along the way, different tools that I'm using, all of that kind of stuff that you've seen before on this channel. However, before I was mostly contributing to existing open source projects. I do really want to practice the discomfort of building greenfield projects. There's something about that like greenfield chaos that really kind of stresses me out, that I need to learn to adapt to that discomfort and be okay with that. So this year I'm planning on building a lot more than ever before. I just want to practice executing on different ideas without worrying too much about trying to make it perfect first try. Like, let's just make it messy, but let's make it work. And I am a process developer, so I really do genuinely enjoy the process of coding and getting blocked and figuring out why that thing isn't working. Like, to me, coding is like puzzles, and I love puzzles. I am probably going to continue to, share that process kind of thing. I'm not really going to be doing a crazy amount of vibe coding. I might do some vibe coding related things where I just want the product and not the process. For example, like, if I'm doing some kind of like bot or something like that, I'm not super interested on like the web development side of things. So I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole. And if I just need the functionality, then sure, I might vibe code things. And I have been given like free reign of Copilot. So I'm going to be playing around with that, using that probably as my AI tool for the next little bit. And I think I'm going to explore different ways too that AI can make it easier for me as a solo developer. Of course, it's like reviewing your code, seeing if there are different like things you could learn from how you're writing your code that could be improved, and ask it really specific questions on that front. I want to refresh my foundations. I feel like I'm a little bit rusty. It's been so long since I've had to solve a problem that actually required like strong use of like data structures and algorithms. I want to kind of like brush up on some of that stuff and just feel a lot more like well-rounded, confident, and everything as a developer. So I want to lean into all of that. I will dive into like my actual plan for this year for how I'm going to level up my development in a dedicated video. So you can look forward to seeing that on my channel as well. If you want to keep up with everything that I'm doing, then the best way to keep in touch is through my socials. That would be this YouTube channel, live streams. I'll be doing usually 3 times a week. I'll be doing co-working when I feel a little bit antisocial and don't want to talk as much, which, I am at the end of the day just a programmer. Okay. I'm not always the chattiest girly on the block. Okay. I will be live streaming Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays generally. And then I will be posting shorts multiple times a week, maybe daily. Right now it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then long form videos will also be coming weekly. That is probably the best way to stay tuned. I am starting to post more on Instagram and TikTok again because I've automated it and I don't really want to engage with those platforms. So if you're commenting there, I probably won't see it, but I'm posting over there now as well. If that's your preferred platform to stay in touch, you can see any short form content over there. That is the long and the short of why I quit my dream job to do who knows what full time. I hope that this video serves as a reminder to make sure that you're spending your energy towards things that will benefit you long term, that you genuinely enjoy doing long term. I know that we can have these like stretches where, you have to kind of just hunker down on like things that are obviously not fun, but it's really important to make sure that like the company priorities of wherever you're working align with what you need from that company long term. Like it's a two-way street. Make sure that you are getting value from the company and that they are getting value from you, and make sure that that stays true. Otherwise, that can be pretty unsustainable. I just think that it's really important that you put yourself and your needs first, because nobody else is going to advocate for you. And that is the end of this video. I will see you in a future video, and I'll keep you updated on all of the coding stuff that I get up to. You'll be seeing tech related stuff and coding specific things, but I just think it's gonna be all around good nerd vibes. So I hope to see you in future videos, and let me know in the comments what you thought about this video, if you've had similar experiences, and just your thoughts in general. Like again, love to hear your feedback on things. So I will see you in a future video. Bye for now.